Hello Canada, welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias the guy. Well, we're gonna dabble on this whole report that was purposely put out to try and hurt Daniel Smith and the Conservatives. It's just another form of protectionism by the liberal leftists. And as usual, I post all of my information in the description below, so you'll actually be able to go over the report and read the bias yourself. Now, before we get into that and break all this down and just bring a little wee bit of history lessons back to the public so they can actually see what was really going on and what caused these wildfires, we're going to dabble on a clip that came out from leaked audio from the CBC with the meeting they had with Travis Danraj. Now, this this all happened. Okay, so this leak is it's so more than a year after his resignation, a disciplinary meeting for Danraj was convened by CBC after he had made a social media post about being critical of CBC's then president, Catherine Tate. Let's dive into this. Listen very carefully because you'll hear, now hopefully, if you're a new viewer, I urge you to subscribe. If you're a new subscriber, check out the previous videos. I did one all about Danraj, and in that second episode where his lawyer came out, she exposes the fact that even the union wasn't doing their job trying to protect him. They were protecting CBC. Yeah. Unions have lost, and well, they are losing, and most have lost all respect from regular people in the political sphere of what is Canada. Their influence and the abuse of power that they use from their representatives, their actual workers, to promote leftist ideology, free checks, push their friendships within parties that go against their own workers. Now, I know this firsthand. I know a lot of people within the unions, and not a single, well, I shouldn't say that. There's maybe two or three that I know of that have discussed leftist policies and are glad their union is like jumping on the NDP and pushing NDP or pushing liberal. Elbows up. But for the most part, most of the workers I know are absolutely disgusted with the fact that their unions weren't trying to get the Conservatives elected. They have seen the destruction of what the Liberal NDP and Green have been doing and want to continue to do to Canada. So listen carefully, because this is a CBC rep and the union rep.
The new budget funding was publicly put out in the budget on Tuesday. It was widely reported on by not only the CBC but other broadcasters. There's nothing in the tweet that is insider information.
A perception of a unionized employee criticizing their employer.
Now, here's the tweet. At a time when the public broadcaster is under increasing scrutiny and when transparency is needed, At Canada Night requested an interview with the President, Catherine Tate. We wanted to discuss new budget funding, what it means for jobs, and the corporation's strategic priorities ahead. Our request was declined. This is unfortunate.
It is an employee who has a personal stake in the matter, whose job is part of it.
Now, this is Andre Lau, the Senior Director of Digital Publishing and Streaming for CBC. The union representative, it doesn't give a name. But just so you understand the two people who are in this conversation with Travis.
And that tweet could or could not be based on information that you know as an employee. So the issue is, does this post meet the standards of integrity? Does it meet the conflict of interest and the code of conduct?
Yeah.
Those are the questions.
And I firmly stand by the fact that it does.
Do you understand the concern with this post as it relates to the principle of integrity?
No, I really don't. I don't. And again, Andre, I find it problematic that we are in a meeting where we are discussing something that is in the interests of the corporation. So I'm not seeing the separation right now between the journalism and the interest of the corporation. I see how it would be in the interest of the corporation for this tweet not to be out, but I don't see how journalistically it's not sound. That's the kind of like disconnect that I'm having right now.
Now, this is the union representative.
I just want to get some clarity on something here. Because this tweet came out of a request for an interview that came from the team for the show, and so I didn't watch the show that night. So was there coverage of the budget, or was there going to be coverage of the budget, or was that not part of the?
We had an editorial discussion, which was part of, and the entire team was part of, as to whether or not now was the correct time, since there was a significant development with the release of the federal budget and the new money, to put a request in for Catherine Tate. We had been discussing putting in a request in for some time, and we thought that there was a news hook to it because of the new development. So that's when the green light was given by and it was a team consensus that we would put this request in. And it was delegated that task.
Is that good, Ryan? So let me answer that. We talked about the protocols, considerations when CBC journalists. Well, maybe I haven't. What's your understanding of the protocol and considerations when CBC journalists are covering the CBC?
It's the JSP statement again.
Clear editorial separation.
Clear editorial separation. Yeah. So those who have the interest of the corporation should not be influencing reporters.
Yes. Yeah.
And if that is happening, that kind of goes against like some core fundamentals of the public broadcast.
So other aspects of the BSP, as I mentioned, which is that principle of integrity and the perception of who has a stake in the market, and real perceived impartiality, because as I mentioned, you are employed and you're criticizing your employer.
And there you have it. Now, it's obvious the union isn't looking out after his interest, doing what the union's supposed to do. The union is looking out for CBC. I urge you, check out previous episodes to the interview with that lawyer. And in that, you also find, as always, all the links. I post every link other than private documents so as not to dox anybody, or personal emails, again, to protect the people who reach out to me. I post everything else. I created this channel to get the truth. Sorry, so sorry, just the facts out there. Because the propaganda has just, the state controls every piece of information. When you're listening to the radio, where do they get the news? They are all CRTC regulated. It's all propaganda. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Now, we're going to move on. This report came out, and it's pretty scathing. I mean, really scathing. Now, I urge you, read it over. It's posted in the link. It's posted in the description. And you'll totally see how this was written by leftists, by obviously people who were looking for somewhere to blame, ignorant to the facts of what was going on. And we're just going to throw the entire reality of what happened with the Jasper forest fires. Now, for years, there have been ecologists, environmentalists, all different types of Scientologists that are like that were warning the federal government, warning Parks Canada, warning the provinces about this pine beetle. And not only the impact it was having, but what the future impact would have, because there was so much control on wildfires that we had lost our seasonal burning, which is what was nature used to control massive outbreaks. Yes, sorry to have to tell you this. Forest fires are part of the world. It is a natural thing. Humans have caused a slowdown, and with the lack of forest management, have just compressed all of this into the nightmare that we saw. And we're seeing today the forest fires all over. Now, yes, there's so many reports coming out that like 97% of these fires, they're human caused. It's just a fact. There are really simple people out there who have no idea the dangers of walking away from their fire, not extinguishing it perfectly, completely out. Those that really maybe just don't understand, small percentage. There's the broken bottles, shards of glass that are laying in the ditches that work as magnifying glasses that light it up. There are the quads and motorbikes and even trucks and cars that are accidentally lighting them up. But there is a large percentage of people going out there with this green, ideology that are starting these in order to push an agenda. Now, nature has been slowed down. Wildfires are normal. There's a lot more to this story I'd love to dabble onto, like how they were, for decades, using glyphosate to wipe out trees with leaves in order to allow for the pines to grow. Leaf-bearing trees are Mother Nature's natural fire breaks. Yes. So logging companies were told that when they went in and they cleared an area, they had to desiccate that area to stop any leaf-bearing trees from slowing or inhibiting pines from growing. Why? Well, pines are owned by the Crown and provinces. So they make money at the cost of what we're seeing today. A lot of people aren't aware of this. They still spray glyphosate, people. Yeah. It's in all the waters. It's not just farmers, it's your governments that are doing this. That stuff is toxic. I have an all organic farm. We don't use anything like that. There are it takes a little bit more work to do certain things without using the chemicals, but the benefits outweigh the destruction and long-term harm that these chemicals leave behind. And they infiltrate every aspect. I mean, they not only penetrate into the soil, they get into all of the watershed. They're in everything. You can't have a glass of wine nowadays without tasting, well, not tasting, you don't know what's there, but without putting a little bit of that in your body. Piles of evidence out there. I'll probably do a future episode on it. Now, let's get started with this whole, the media trying to smear, well, Daniel for sure. They're after her big time. Same with Mo. It's the East's left socialist ideology, the mainstream paid for by the Liberal Party, trying to crush freedom, trying to crush what it is to be Canadian. And they love to carry a narrative in any which way or form to smear, kind of like they're doing with Polyev. Let's dive into this, and we're just going to break it all apart, like I said, with truth and reality.
Hi there, Julia Wong, CBC National. This is a question for the Premier. A report into the Jasper wildfire response says the province regularly requested information and tried to make decisions. The report also says that incident commanders spent more time managing inquiries instead of directing the response. Did the province make the situation worse in Jasper?
We absolutely did not. I'm very disappointed that this report politicizes what actually should be a very successful example of unified command and support between municipal, provincial, and federal government. As you know, the Alberta government provided $181 million worth of support, disaster recovery program funding, evacuation payments. We supported the Red Cross. We gave tourism support. We reestablished the Jasper Food Bank. We gave property tax relief. We rebuilt a seniors complex, and we supported regional transit services. I think that it is important to understand that this was a federal fire. It took place in a federal park, and it was a Federal Parks Canada response. We stayed on standby awaiting their request for supply and support, which they gave to us, or which they ultimately did end up asking us to do, and we moved into unified command only after the fire had reached Jasper and burnt down 1/3 of it. So I would have liked to have seen two things come out of this report. Number one, a recognition that the reason why we ended up with such tragic circumstances, in part, was because of inappropriate forest management practices that doesn't cut down deadwood trees. And also, I wish that they had realized that they needed to ask for unified command faster, because we were not asked for support until after the town burned down. So whatever it is that they are trying to do to deflect blame, I'm not impressed with it, and I would ask for an apology from the city as a result. We want to work collaboratively with our municipal and federal partners, but pointing fingers at others when they should be looking at what they can do to improve their own response would have been a far better outcome as we approach the year anniversary.
And this is just a clarification question of my question one. Did the province at any point during the wildfire response get feedback that it was getting in the way of the wildfire response?
Not at all. In fact, when we showed up with equipment, we showed up with tankers, we showed up with personnel. We had a firefighter die in the process of trying to manage the response. We had drones that were monitoring hotspots for weeks afterwards to be able to determine safe re-entry. At no point did they say they did not want our response. And so this report comes as a shot out of the blue. It's unfair, it's untrue, and I would like them to withdraw it.
And so my second question is, as I mentioned, the report lays out how the province was a hindrance. Your joint statement and your statements now make very clear that you do not agree with that. Obviously, both these things can't be true. With all that said, how will the province work to make things better next time around?
Well, let me tell you what's happening right now. Right now, there is a fire on the Cold Lake Air Base. And we have an agreement with the federal government that we are the first responder to manage that fire. We have mutual aid agreements with First Nations as well, where the federal government has agreed that we are in a better position to be the first responder. What I would like to see is Parks Canada recognize that we have more capability, more experience than they do. They fight dozens of fires a year. We fight hundreds of fires a year. So what I would like is for Parks Canada to swallow its ego maybe a bit and work with us on a mutual aid agreement so that we can move to unified command faster. If you look at some of the wrecks that we've had in this province, a lot of them have started in federal parks because of their poor forest management, and because of uncontrolled burns that have gone out of control, and because they do not call us in fast enough. Waterton is an example. We had a problem with a fire coming out of the Banff Park area as well last year that we were able to contain. Jasper is an example. And we have several First Nations that have not recovered because of fire, because the federal government is not working with us on a response. On Fox Lake, we also have a problem in Sturgeon Cree Lake. We have a new a problem with Chip Lake that we hope to have a new response with the federal government. But pointing fingers, casting blame, that is not what the purpose of the exercise is. We all have to look at what we have done in the past and how we can improve. And I don't think that Parks Canada and the town of Jasper have done an adequate job of that. I hope they go back to the drawing board.
Thank you.
Hi, Premier. It's Lisa Johnson from the Canadian Press. Just to follow up on that, you've made it clear and you've highlighted some of the positive contributions that you feel like the province has made, but the town of Jasper commissioned this postmortem to figure out what could be done better. Are you going to do your own report, or do you acknowledge that there were deficiencies in the provincial response that you want to improve before the next disaster happens?
The province was not asked to help until the fire reached the town. This was a federal response by Parks Canada. They chose not to ask us to come into unified command until the cleanup began. And I would say that what I would like to see is for us to be called into unified command a whole lot earlier. I would like to see that we would work with them to clear away the deadwood in all of the forest parks areas so that it does not continue to create a hazard for the rest of the province. Those are two things I would like to see.
Now, Alberta, back in 2008-ish, 9-ish, started to put huge amounts of money into tackling the standing dead from the pine beetle, as well as forest management. Clearing out a lot of the fallen debris and stuff from towns and areas. They were even having consultations discussing what Trump was kind of pushing through right now. The fact that you could use infrastructure bills to clear cut areas and either plant leaf-bearing trees in there or make them slightly larger and put in the fundamental assets needed, like water, in order to prevent fires from spreading and getting too close to towns. But when the NDP took over in Alberta, they slashed huge funding because they were too busy focusing on socialism instead of reality. You only got so much money. So not only did they, spend billions of dollars that nobody could afford, kind of like what the Liberals are doing, and the new Liberals, Carney's Liberals, same party, are doing, record spending, that don't help. They just hurt. And then when Alberta re-elected the Conservatives, they started to put in place these programs again. But with the huge debt that was left behind from the NDP, they couldn't put the money in quick enough. They had to pay down debt. So this is where she's at. Now, like I said, she gets really PO'd later and starts dropping some bombs that everybody knew already what was going on, but because of propaganda, the people who were watching brainwashed television had no idea.
We always do these kinds of reviews to see if there are things that we can improve. But I think there does need to be that kind of approach done on the part of every entity that was involved. But let's be very clear. Alberta did not get involved in the wildfire response until after the fire had breached the town. Everything that we do in our wildfire response is to prevent that from happening. Because as soon as you flip over into structural firefighting, now you're into a real problem. You're into a problem of toxic air. You're into a problem of the danger of explosion. You're into a problem of a massive and long-term recovery effort. And so I would hope that everybody would be focused on the same thing, working together so that we never have to have fires breach towns again and have this kind of long-term recovery effort that needs to be done. But make no mistake, we were not involved in the first days of this fire. This was 100% a Parks-led effort.
And my follow-up is completely unrelated, but getting...
So, just as a reminder.
Hey everyone, like you, I'm watching the tragedy unfold in Jasper. And my thoughts are with the people who have evacuated and are watching this as well, and also those who are still in the community. Make sure if you can leave, please leave safely. Take care of yourself. Also to the emergency responders and firefighters, we wish you all the luck in fighting this fire and keeping safe as well. I've been in constant contact over the last couple of days, not only with my team, but also reaching out to our federal counterparts, where we're working together with the City of Jasper, as well with Parks Canada and our own Alberta Emergency Management Agency. And we're going to do everything we can to put this fire out.
Now, she was wringing her hands because the federal government wouldn't let her help. They didn't want to look bad. They were already hiding documents. They were already lying. They were already using their propaganda, which we're going to show you in a little wee bit further in this episode. She was guilt-struck because her hands were tied. There were firefighters who were waiting for the federal government to get off their butts and allow them to get in there and do something. Ottawa wanted this to happen. It's in their climate agenda interest, people. They don't care about you. They don't care.
Hi, Premier Sean Amato with City News. You say in your statement that this Jasper report is politically motivated and misguided. The municipality is already sort of pushing back on this, saying no, this was an independent report, and more than 300 people were interviewed as part of the process. So who do you allege is playing politics here?
Well, I'm sorry, we weren't even involved in the initial stage of the response. Because it's a Parks Canada fire and it's a Parks Canada response. I have to tell you, I was quite surprised with my first conversation with the Prime Minister when I was offering help, and he didn't understand that it was a Parks Canada fire. He said, we'll give you whatever help you need. And I said, no, you don't understand. We're offering to help you.
Did you hear that? Listen carefully. Our country is run by imbeciles. It's the same Liberal Party in power today that allowed this to happen. They're imbeciles. They are children. No, I'm sorry. I don't want to insult children. Children are smarter than these imbeciles. Listen carefully.
With the Prime Minister when I was offering help, and he didn't understand that it was a Parks Canada fire. He said, we'll give you whatever help you need. And I said, no, you don't understand. We're offering to help you. So that, I think, shows you the level of disconnect that there was. Our Emergency Management Cabinet Committee had been intervened, and we were meeting every single day, and we continued to meet every single day, waiting to see if there was a possibility we could get into unified command.
Now, this is one of the things that I admire most about her, but yet it perturbs me. She's a politician. She doesn't want to go out and slander and really be honest, because it affects the polls. This is what's so sad about our system, is that you can't. Because she knows that propaganda will twist everything she says to make her look bad. And the Liberals look good, which they're doing today. And I don't have time on this episode to go into all of the pro-liberal crap that the mainstream media has been putting out. They actually kind of went silent here in the last day because Jasper kind of wrote an apology, which, again, I'll give you in the description. You can click on the link and read it. She's a politician. These are little things that while all hell is breaking loose, you don't want to allow the propaganda to use to manipulate and make something worse. To give propaganda the tool, we'll say the pokey poke, to do more damage than good, because that's what propaganda does. Fear, hate, and division. Let's carry on.
I sent notes after the breach of fire, after it was very clear they needed our help, to senior government officials saying, let's get to unified command so that we can clean this up, go through recovery, and get back to normal. So if they're looking at their response up to that point where the fire breach, that has nothing to do with the province, and they shouldn't be trying to deflect. They should be looking at their own processes to figure out what went wrong. What I think went wrong is that they didn't do adequate fire protection and fire guard clearance, and then they didn't call in for unified command early enough. We had a lot of resources we could have brought to bear. They didn't ask for them until the fire breached the city. And by then, now you're into a cleanup mission, and it's all hands on deck at that point. So it's unfair assessment, and I don't accept it.
Earlier this week, Lou...
Now, that's what the Liberal Party does. Because now, when it's cleanup time, they wipe their hands, they walk away, they throw some taxpayer dollars on it, and leave all of this destruction on the shoulders of the provinces. They have done this with the child care. They have done this with natural resources. They have done that. This is... all they do is get up on a podium, beat their chest, look at me, vote us, we're doing so good. And then when they flick the match and Canada burns, blame the provinces. Don't worry. Most of the province's debt has incurred during the last 8 years. Why? Because they're cleaning up the mess left by the federal government. They come in and destroy the programs. Poke, poke, push, push, divide, smash, do whatever they want, stand up, look at me, we're great. And in the meantime, not only are your tax dollars federally being wasted, now you have the provinces having to clean up the mess with more of your tax dollars, while the propaganda doesn't tell you the truth.
In the world. Our grandparents visited to experience the majesty of this place with its mountains and lakes and meadows. They took our parents, who then took us to this special spot that they'd spent time in as children. And now we take our own kids and our own loved ones and visitors from around the world to feel that same feeling that you get with your first glimpse of the mountains on the horizon. A feeling that even though you've just left home, you're coming home. And so although those of us who experience Jasper as visitors can't imagine what it feels like to be a Jasperite right now,
We share the sense of loss with all of those who live in the town, who care for it, and who have helped build it. Jasper, we will continue to stand by you, and as everyone works to get their feet back under them, and as we look forward to recovery. Right now, the wildfire is still out of control, and crews are working in dangerous conditions to try and protect critical infrastructure in the town. So to the brave men and women currently on the ground in Jasper, I want to express my deep gratitude and the gratitude of all Albertans. Whether you are part of the initial efforts or whether you were activated and drove in there last night or early this morning, there really are not enough words to express our thanks and our wishes for your safety and your success. Once again, you've put yourselves on the front lines in a show of true heroism. Thank you for your bravery and your commitment to keeping Albertans safe. Well, I will leave the specific details on the situation and the efforts of those fighting it to Ministers Todd Loewen and Minister Mike Ellis, as well as to our Alberta wildfire officials here with us today, Stephen Lacroix from the Emergency Management Agency and Christy Tucker from Forest. Let me assure you that Alberta is doing all that we can. Our Emergency Management Cabinet Committee meeting has been meeting daily for the last several days, and will continue to do so. I have been in communication with the Federal Minister of Public Safety, Dominic LeBlanc. He's the Minister of Public Safety, Democratic Institutions and Intergovernmental Affairs. The Alberta Emergency Management Agency, Jasper Mayor Richard Ireland, and many others. I understand that Minister LeBlanc is being briefed as we speak, and I look forward to meeting with Minister Harjit Sajjan here in Edmonton later this afternoon, where he will join us at our command center. Alberta stands ready to assist in every way that we can, and I have asked Minister LeBlanc to move to a unified command structure so that Alberta can better help. We hope to hear a positive response from Parks Canada.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that?
Have asked Minister LeBlanc to move to a unified command structure so that Alberta can better help. We hope to hear a positive response from Parks Canada on this.
You hearing that? Now I urge you, read the whole report and you will see the biasm, the self-protectionism that was put in. All they're doing is showing how ignorant and truly uneducated they really are to the reality of what led to this fire. She was begging and pleading. They had resources available. No. Parks and the federal government got it. Well, once the federal government realized, oh shoot, wait, this is our responsibility? What minister is in charge of that? Too late. Before the winds picked up, Alberta was already calling, warning the federal government, begging Parks Canada to allow them into that airspace to help.
And in the meantime, we will continue to provide any and all support that they request in any way that we can. I can tell you that Alberta Wildfire supported the Parks Canada Incident Management Team yesterday. They report that the situation on the ground overnight was extremely volatile. As we continue to battle the fire, our government will move to daily updates with Ministers Loewen and Ellis, as well as Alberta Wildfire officials. And we will continue with our daily written updates as well. To the residents, families, and business owners who call Jasper home, we will recover from this. To the men and women on the front line and at all operational levels, thank you for your courage and commitment. And to those in Alberta and around the world who have experienced the magic of Jasper. The magic is not lost, and it never will be. Alberta's government will provide the support needed to families and community to recover and to rebuild stronger than ever so that future generations can continue to experience this one-of-a-kind community and to feel the magic of being able to come home. Now, thank you, and I'll turn it over to Minister Ellis.
Now,
people who fled the Jasper wildfires had the chance to return to the town today to see the devastation firsthand. Some of them meeting with the Prime Minister, who was briefed on the fire situation in nearby Hinton, Alberta. Here's CTV's Miriam Valdez-Carletti.
More than a week after wildfires ravaged the town of Jasper, the Prime Minister paid a visit to the Wildfire Command Centre in Hinton, meeting with fire crews and Premier Danielle Smith.
It's going to be a really big rebuilding challenge. I wanted him to see that Unified Command works and that he should trust us as a partner to be able to assist in that.
The leaders were briefed on the wildfire response in Jasper. 858 people still working to get the fire in the national park under control.
Right now, we're taking the advantage of the fact that we're going to try and get as many people on the ground as we can in places we could not get them based on fire behavior.
While it isn't safe for people to return home, evacuees were able to take a bus into the town on Monday for the first time to see the damage and devastation themselves.
I think some people want the closure, so seeing a physical demonstration of your home no longer being there might help with the healing process.
Others aren't ready yet.
We'd rather see the community privately on our own when we're able to. It's just not something we've chosen not to do.
As the province looks towards the future of Jasper and rebuilding the town, Premier Smith says she hopes to work closely with Trudeau.
Because I think we'll be able to get permits approved, the development support that's needed, and be able to do things a lot faster with all three levels of government working.
now, leave it to Danielle Smith, the greatest premier in Canada. She's already got the future in focus. Not only is she dealing with the incompetence of Parks Canada and the federal government, she's already focused on getting it rebuilt. Again, trying to form an alliance with loonies, with absolutely incompetent federal leaders who all they care about is pounding their chest and looking good, as opposed to actually doing something, caring for the people. They don't care. Once again, she's leading the way, and she's running into brick walls. Federal government don't care. They'll just throw some money at it, and guess what? Guess who's got to clean it up? The premiers. And in this case, Alberta. And the federal government loves Alberta money. Oh, do they love it. They love abusing every bit of it. They've bought how many provinces with Alberta money? How many elections has the East won with Alberta money? While they're concerned about polling, she's concerned about the citizens, the actual damage and the replacement to get the town back on its feet.
Together.
Smith says Jasper doesn't have a development permitting department like most municipalities, but is working towards that so rebuilding can be done without any delays. Trudeau didn't make himself available to media or take questions.
No! Why would he?
Without any delays. Trudeau didn't make himself available to media or take questions. His office says he won't be taking a tour of the devastation in Jasper during his visit. Parks Canada saying it was out of respect for the people grieving and those going to visit today.
Bull crap. Do you want to know why? This is why. Guilbeault blames climate change for Jasper fire, praises forest management. A job well done. That's how Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault is describing Park Canada's efforts at forest management in the years leading up to last week's fire that destroyed a third of the Jasper town site. And even though federal officials, including his department, knew the raging pine beetle was a serious hazard, Guilbeault couldn't help but blame climate change for making it worse. As we are seeing in Canada and all around the world, we are seeing more and more aggressive forest fires, he said on a media call on Monday. We certainly saw that number in 2023, and that is what we were faced with. And the fact that we were able to protect several percent we were able to protect several percent of the town? What? Speaks to all of those measures we have put in place over and over the years. And frankly, decades. Really. Parks Canada CEO Ron Hallman, who also lives in Jasper, said he found suggestions, many from Jasper residents, that his agency put tree huggers over people as personally insulting. Well, you did. You did. I reject the premises of questions that Parks Canada place nature before people. It's a ridiculous statement and one that is offensive. Frankly, there is nothing more important for the entire Parks Canada team than the safety of our employees, our guests, the people we work with, and anyone who says anything differently doesn't know very much about us, he said. Well, we're learning lots about you today. Ha 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 ha. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Hallman said officials had been aware of the pine beetle problem around Jasper since at least 1996 and had implemented a plan of prescribed burns and fire breaks over the years, including 15 in the last year alone. But he said the scale of the problem was and still is so vast that it's almost impossible to prevent even more future devastation. And let me just say what the fire smarting means in Jasper in the preparation, because pine beetle is through hundreds of thousands of hectares of forest. And short of bulldozing all of that and burning all of it or mechanically removing it all, we work to minimize risk to towns, to other assets of Parks Canada within the park, he said. We work within the trees, blah, 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 blah. But as Ron was discussing, this isn't something that caught us blindsided. We started fire smart treatments near the community, recognizing that we wanted to have the community to be more easily defendable. It's something that weighs on me. Right. Okay. Jamie Sakarnak, Stephen Guilbeault doesn't want your Jasper Fire questions. He's saving the planet, don't you know? We'll be waiting for a while to hear why stands of dead trees outside Jasper National Park town site were allowed to sit and wait for a catastrophic fire. Twin probes are underway in Ottawa to crack the issue. Well, if they're happening in Ottawa, nothing's going to come of it, because it's all liberal, lefty, loony. That's all you ever get. 0 questions have ever been answered. All they do is hold committees, and they bullcrap the people. We've seen it, SNC. We've seen it, Arrive Scam. It's over and over and over, backed by propaganda. But between jabs at the Harper government and time-wasting lines of questioning better spent on Wikipedia searches, they seem to be getting nowhere. So far, the House has heard a mix of Stephen Harper blame, climate change shrugging, instances of more must be done, and various versions of, well, we follow a procedure, what more can you expect? Senators, meanwhile, saunter through basic questions about firefighting that could be answered with a brief browse of Wikipedia. On Tuesday, for example, Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault headlined the Commons Committee of Witnesses. Conservative MP Gerald Soroka said that the minister, whether he believed Jasper was the benchmark for proper fire management, Guilbeault answered with the positive, the fire prevention program used in Jasper will continue to be used. Our procedures are fine as is, he seemed to say. So, you wonder why there's still all these fires going on? It's their agenda. These guys are complete imbeciles. Asked when he became aware of the large fuel load outside the town, Guilbeault answered that his government spent more on forest fire prevention than that of Harper. Question repeated, answer repeated. We invested about 40 times as much as the Harper government in order to prevent forest fires in Jasper. Blame Harper. Blame Harper. It's all Harper. Blame Harper. Right. Jasper, if you remember, was engulfed in flames in July after a century of excessive fire suppression, a few decades of pine beetle ravaging, an unusually dry summer, combined with to create the ultimate tinderbox. The Harper government was one of many that was responsible for the park since its founding in 1907. Though certainly not blameless, it hasn't held the reins in nearly a decade. More critical is the question of why the tree removal, be it through prescribed burns or harvest, has been minimal, allowed the problem to get out of hand. So out of hand, in fact, that external parties have been cautioning the town about the surrounding powder keg conditions since 2018. For those keeping score, that was still years after the Harper left office. At the Commons Committee, Dane Lloyd, another Conservative MP, pointed out the various warnings that had been raised over the earlier years. Parks Canada Senior Vice President Andrew Campbell, another witness, gave a pulpy boardroom answer. You guys, these people have been warned. They have been warned and warned and warned. But it's not over there. Nope, it keeps on going. Parks Canada caved to environmental lobby by not cutting down dead Jasper trees, says former agency planner. Now, just for, my viewers out there. I've kind of been researching logging. I do my own. I run an Alaska chainsaw mill. I studied lots of it. This has been, I've been working on this for a decade. Slowly, hopefully someday would like to, own my own wood mill. That would be a blessing. Would allow me to actually manage my forested area a lot better. And making sure that I can allow for fire breaks to grow. This is my main reason for wanting to harvest a lot of the trees out there, is to get back to having the natural fire protection that is there. And in doing so, I was actually running across a lot of people who were dealing with this, saying they've been petitioning. They wanted to go in all around Jasper, all around these areas that had, thousands of trees that were standing dead, and they wanted to harvest them. They wanted free access to be able to go in there, cut these trees down, drag them out, and harvest them. But no. The government makes it so expensive. The stump charges, which is the fee you pay per tree, standing dead or not, even though it's to the demise of Jasper, they weren't giving access. They weren't making it possible for individuals who saw what was going on. Yeah, like literally saw the tinderbox and were saying, hey, you know what? We can help you. You can help us. Not only will we clear those out for you, but we'll actually be able to make a profit on it. And a lot of people out there go, oh, those trees are dead. You can't keep them. Horse pucky. And I'm going to show you a video of a guy doing it. And you can see the damage to the tree, and the timber inside is still good if you get to it soon enough before the wood rots standing and gets pulpy. This is the trick. This is why it burnt as fast as it did, because it wasn't standing green. It was standing completely dead. Years have gone by. A lot of these trees you could walk over to with the big axe, you could hit them and they would just explode and fall down. They were that far gone. They literally were matches. A former Parks Canada planner blames agency leadership for last week's devastating blaze in Jasper, Alberta, which saw approximately 30% of the town's infrastructure damaged due to inaction. Peter Schultz, a former senior planner for National Park, claimed overconfident staff members allowed dead wood to build up in Jasper National Park. You could light a match and it's going to practically explode, he said. I saw it for myself. The agency failed to perform prescribed burns in Jasper despite warning Environment and Climate Change Canada, of the obvious fire risk 2 years ago. In 2022, Jasper National Management Plan warned that 44% of Jasper's white bark pine forest was killed by pine beetles, posing a wildfire risk. It proposed controlled burns, followed by tree planting to replace the dead pine. Very few seedlings were planting, and there were no prescribed burns, although Parks Canada could not explain the lack of following, though. Again, read all these articles. I post everything in the description below. It's not over. We can just keep on going and going. Gilboa received 2022 warning about Jasper's fire risk and took minimal action. Parks Canada failed to perform prescribed burns in Jasper despite warning Environment Canada. This goes on and on and on. It never ends. Parks Canada slashed fire budget before devastating Jasper wildfire. Parks Canada cut its wildfire reduction budget by 23% the year before the devastating blaze destroyed 358 buildings in Jasper and left 40% of residents homeless, according to an internal report. Blacklock's reporter says, despite claims of investing millions in fire preparedness, the agency reduced its national funding for wildfire mitigation from $4.42 million to $3.4 million, with no explanation. Parks Canada uses a variety of tools and strategies, including prescribed fires, forest thinning, and the creation of community fire guards to reduce the impact of wildfire and protect the public, communities, and infrastructure, managers wrote in an October 1st briefing book. Millions of dollars have been invested, said the document. The agency has withheld year-over-year figures for Jasper National Park under the Access to Information Act. Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault, testifying at the Senate Energy and Environment Committee on October 1st, praised Parks Canada's wildfire preparedness. This is why you're seeing this document come out that's trying to slander Alberta and blame them for having their hands tied and not be able to go in and help. Absolute insanity, people.
Jack Farrow with the Canadian Press. Hi, Premier. Thanks for taking my questions. I'm also going to ask about the Jasper fire. So I'm a little bit confused by your response just because the report itself says it doesn't need to lay blame. In fact, the report says that the overall response to the fire was a success. Like, nobody's getting blamed for a third of the town being burned down. But the town chief administrator, Bill Given, told me today, like the point of this report was to, analyze the gaps in how to respond so that we can, all work together better for the next round if it happens. I guess I'm curious why you're taking from the report that you and your government are being blamed for this when that's not what the report says.
Well, because there's a whole section that blames the Alberta government, and every member of the media has written that the report blames the Alberta government. So maybe they're backing down, maybe they regret saying so, and they should issue us an apology if that's the case, because we weren't involved. It was a Parks Canada fire. It was a Parks Canada and Jasper-led effort until the town burnt down. We only came in after the fact to help with cleaning up after the fires, removing the hot spots, and making sure that the evacuees were taken care of and that we could get them on a pathway to return home. So if they were just looking at the immediate fire response, that's on them, and we shouldn't have been mentioned at all.
Some people are saying, what about cuts to firefighting? What about dealing with pine beetle, dead wood? Anything do you think is going to change?
I would say we changed last year because we realized that there was a lot of investment that we needed to make. So my Minister of Forestry and Parks, he advocated for a 50% increase to his budget. So we now have the highest forest fire budget that we've ever had. We also made sure to put a higher contingency away because last year we had 1.5 billion and we used it all. So this year we increased it 2 billion.
Literally 10 seconds left. Do you know?
Yeah.
Today I joined Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and our Public Safety and Emergency Services Minister Mike Ellis, along with the Mayor of Jasper, in Hinton to receive an update from the command center and to speak with some of Jasper's evacuees. We had a conversation on Jasper's recovery and the need for a unified command when dealing with the national parks to ensure both governments are fully coordinated. In my conversation with Prime Minister Trudeau today, I expressed our thanks for Ottawa's continued collaboration during this crisis. I also made it clear that working together will only become more imperative as we look to recovery after the fires. In fact, we heard this reiterated many times by those in command that the integration of all three levels of government has been one of the finest examples of us working together on these kinds of incidents, and they hope that it would become the standard. Once re-entry is possible, we will need to tackle many urgent priorities to ensure that...
Interesting, hey? Interesting. Yeah.
Crews are still working to put out fires that have already destroyed significant parts of Jasper, Alberta.
There's Mom and Dad's house.
Here's how the last few days got us here.
Now, listen carefully. Alberta was already they were talking to Parks Canada, trying to beg them to say, if you need help, we want in. We will help you. We actually have standing forces right now waiting for the call. This is before the winds picked up.
It changed quickly Monday night. Strong winds pushed fires from the outskirts of Jasper to within a few kilometers of town.
It's 11:24 Mountain Time. The town of Jasper and the national park now under an evacuation order.
We're just kind of relaxing, and then we heard some sirens at about 6 o'clock. And you don't hear sirens too often in Jasper. They always tell you to be prepared for this stuff. This wasn't a dress rehearsal.
About 25,000 people made their way out of town and the national park.
Last night it got really, really bad. And then the ash just started falling from the sky because we were right in Jasper. It was just crazy, the traffic. It was really hard to get out of there.
By early Tuesday morning, Highway 16, the only open road out of town, was jammed.
Now, a lot of people out there saying, wow, they were warned, they could have got out of there. People had faith in their government. They don't anymore. They really thought that the government was going to actually get in there and do something. They thought. They thought the government was already doing something. They actually thought that the federal government was really concerned about them and was doing everything they could to mitigate the fires. They all thought wrong. They all thought wrong. And now you've got a few squeaky voices that are feeling the burn from what, well, the lack of what they didn't do. The lack of, well, thinking ahead.
There was bumper-to-bumper traffic, and they were only moving about 10 kilometers per a couple hours.
This could have been catastrophic. Again, whose fault is it? Not Alberta's.
There isn't a campground between here and Calgary right now that has any availability.
Well, in Jasper and the national park, things only got worse.
One of Canada's most iconic natural and cultural landscapes is on fire.
There are currently multiple wildfires burning within Jasper National Park. This is a dynamic and evolving situation.
Tuesday afternoon, the wildfire south of the town had burned more than 6,000 hectares. By evening, Jasper had been fully evacuated. Authorities say only about 40 people refused to leave.
Police are actively going house to house, to apartments, speaking with these people and encouraging them to leave.
On Wednesday, things didn't let up.
We're going to have strong winds continuing, and we expect that this will increase our fire growth on all flanks.
Authorities say conditions made it nearly impossible to fight the fires. Water bombers were grounded because flying conditions were too dangerous, and heavy equipment had to be pulled for safety reasons. Within 48 hours of its first report Monday night, fire reached the border of Jasper at about 7 p.m. Wednesday evening. Then, as the air quality got even worse, Parks Canada pulled its first responders from the front lines to keep them safe.
Some of the firefighters in the park observed flames 400 feet high.
By Thursday morning, much of the town had suffered serious damage.
Let's not forget this that came out a couple weeks ago. And the media right away said, oh, this was just rude. They had no right. They witnessed what is going on. We write you today on behalf of our constituents who have had to deal with the suffocating Canadian wildfire smoke filling the air to begin the summer. As we are entering the height of fire season, we would like to know how your government plans on mitigating wildfire and the smoke that makes its way south. As I am sure you know, this is not the first year Canadian wildfire smoke has been an issue. In 2023, Canada had its worst year for wildfires on record. Last year's fire season was considered one of the worst, and this year seems to be a continuation of the previous years. While we know a key driver of this issue has been a lack of active forest management, we've also seen things like arson as another way multiple large wildfires have ignited in Canada. With all the technology that we have at our disposal, both in preventing and fighting wildfires, this worrisome trend can be reversed if proper action is taken. Our constituents have been limited to their ability to go outside and safely breathe due to the dangerous air quality and wildfire smoke has created in our neck of the woods. Summer months are the best time of year, and we love to spend outdoors, recreating, enjoying time with family, and creating new memories, blah, 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 blah. Canada has been a friendly neighbor to the United States and the states we represent. So given the significance of this issue, we urge you to relay this message to your government, in particular, Natural Resources Canada and the Canadian Forest Service. Thank you for your time and your consideration. We look forward to your response. From the Congress of the United States. Now, please, don't tell me that this couldn't have been prevented with free enterprise, with ingenuity, with hard-working Canadians who have been begging for the government to slash the damn taxes, to free the regulations, to knock off the highway robbery, and give small independent woodsmen the ability to go in there and cut these trees when they're still profitable, not when they are standing matchsticks.
Timber! Eh?
Look carefully. There is a bluish staining that happens. It's a chemical process left from the beetle. You can see it in this wood. This could cut costs for consumers. It cuts down the standing matches that are out there. It helps our economy. You want to build more houses? This is a great way to do it. Do you want to cut down costs? This is a great way of doing it. Do you want to cut down the unemployment? This is a great way of doing it. Our government thinks corporation. They don't think individual. They don't care about you. This is good lumber. And now, from personal experience milling, I would have actually just slab cut all of it and dried it in place, and then corner cut it after. He's kind of wasting a fair amount of lumber, but I think he's doing it because this will all get used. A lot of all the exterior stuff will end up going to the chippers to make, your OSB and the rest of that, and then he's just settling for the beam work or really good, clean looking 2x4s or 4x4s, 6x6s, whatever you can get out of the lumber. But if he actually cut it all with the live edge on it and then dried it, you would get a lot larger volume of wood off of it. And I can tell you, as a woodworker, that internal part of the bluing is actually sought after by cabinet makers because it's very unique. And it makes the wood's profile, graining profile, beautiful, especially when you're doing opposite cuts and you're making both sides of the door a match. Our government is run by imbeciles. This is what you get with a socialist government. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the episode, the refresher of the reality of what's going on. And again, I urge you to definitely read over in entirety this report. You want to see ignorance? This is elbows up. And yes, they wrote a somewhat kind of apology, which, again, I post everything in the description so you have full access to it. But they kind of needed to clear the air a little bit, because what they thought was going to kind of prop them up and give them the ability to beat their chest again, I think they realized, oh boy, we made a mistake because, well, the truth is out there, and thanks to people like you who like, share, and subscribe and are really allowing people the access to the facts. Sorry, so sorry, just the truth, just the facts, is starting to knock down the pedestal to propaganda and expose all of these people for what they are. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you are, make sure you punch that notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. Until the next time, I'm Alias Tagai. You've been watching Canadian Citizen Journal. Stay informed.